I opened my eyes to a world drained of color. A vast gray wasteland stretched in every direction, meeting a sky the shade of old ash. The air was thin and sharp in my lungs, carrying a grit that scraped my throat with every breath. I was alone. There was no memory of a life before this, no clue as to how I had arrived in this unforgiving emptiness. I had nothing but the tattered clothes on my back and a gnawing void where my past should have been. The silence was a physical weight, broken only by the whisper of a relentless wind that seemed to promise nothing but slow decay. My journey began without direction, a desperate march against the horizon. I walked for what felt like days, my feet raw and blistered against the sharp, cracked earth. The wind was a constant adversary, pushing against me, stealing my warmth, and whipping dust into my eyes until they were swollen slits. Hope, a fragile thing to begin with, began to crumble with each step. The landscape was a monotonous panorama of death. Skeletal rock formations clawed at the sky, and the ground offered no sustenance. Every hollow I explored was dry, every overhang too exposed to offer real shelter. The sun, a pale disk in the colorless sky, offered no warmth, only a harsh, draining glare. Despair was a cold companion, wrapping its tendrils around my heart, whispering of the inevitable end. I collapsed onto the gravel, the sharp stones digging into my palms. My throat was a desert, my body a husk. This was it. The end of a story I couldn't even remember the beginning of. My gaze drifted, unfocused, across the bleak terrain. And then I saw it. A tiny, almost imperceptible fleck of defiance against the gray. A small withered plant, its leaves curled and brown yet somehow clinging to life. A spark ignited within me, a desperate, primal instinct to fight. I crawled towards it, the fragile stem a beacon in the desolation. With a surge of adrenaline, I began to dig into the packed earth beside it, my fingernails splitting and my hands bleeding. The soil was dry, then slightly less so. I dug deeper, frantically, until my fingers brushed against dampness. A dark, muddy trickle of water seeped into the hole. It was life. As the pale sun began its slow descent, I found myself crouched within a crude shelter, a small fortress of stacked rocks that blunted the edge of the ceaseless wind. The water, filtered through a scrap of my clothing, had eased the fire in my throat. My body ached, my hands were raw, but a new feeling had taken root in my soul. I looked out over the desolate expanse, the long shadows stretching like grasping fingers across the plains. The despair was gone, replaced by something harder, something forged in the crucible of near death. The world was still a barren wasteland, and the struggle was far from over. But as the first star pricked the darkening sky, I knew I was no longer just a man waiting to die. I was a survivor.